During World War II, something wild happened. Nearly 20 million American families grew their own vegetables. In their backyards, parks, churches, even baseball fields were all converted into living ecosystems. And these victory gardens would produce 40% of all of America's vegetables, from normal people just growing in normal soil. So the question I want to ask, and I think we should all ask more, is what if we bring back the spirit of these victory gardens, but implement modern scientific hydroponic vertical farming? Well, the numbers, they get massive.
In 1942, the United States government faced a massive problem. Troops overseas needed food. Farmers were overextended, supply chains were fragile. So they launched one of the most successful social agricultural movements in history, victory gardens.
You can have vegetables, lots of them, on your table next winter. You can have your own fresh vegetables on your table this summer if you have your own victory garden.
Posters told Americans, grow your own food, can your own, feed your own. Teachers ran garden hubs, housewives became horticulturalists, kids learned compost before algebra, and about 40% of all American households grew food, a rate which we have never hit again. So my grandfather was born in the 1930s, and we're all blessed and lucky enough to still have him around. And I wanted to ask him what his recollection was, what it was like growing up in the 40s with victory gardens. So here's what he said.
You have me remembering what it was like being a kid in the days of victory gardens and cards and ration books and searchlights over LA Harbor at night. But don't ask what I had for breakfast. Just about all the neighbors had a victory garden, so I suppose not to have one was something to gossip about. The Chinese family up the street had a huge one with lots of things growing up strings, beans and such. We would ride our Schwinns up to look at it. There wasn't much else to do. Everything was rationed.
In 1942, every American family received something called a ration book. Sugar, meat, butter, canned goods, coffee, and flour, everything came with limits. These weren't suggestions, they were literal restrictions on how much your family could eat. A pound of sugar a week, a few ounces of meat, 1 can of vegetables if you were lucky. But rationing was never designed to starve people. It was designed to redirect industrial food to the troops and encourage civilians to grow their own. And here's the loophole that I believe was the real reason for the rise. If you grew it yourself, it wasn't rationed.
Yes, there's no restriction on home canning and home processing of vegetables and garden fruits and berries.
That meant a family with a victory garden wasn't living on restrictions, they were living in abundance. A household that relied only on ration cards might have a single can of peas for dinner, but a household with a garden, fresh tomatoes, lettuce, beans, squash, herbs, and the wildest part is that many families with the victory gardens actually ate better during the war than they did before the rationing.
The craziest part isn't what they grew, it's what they unlocked. It's food security, national morale, self-reliance. See, people participated because they felt like they were contributing, not because they were sacrificing. So the question is, what if we take the spirit of victory farms and apply some 2026 hydroponic science?
A traditional dirt garden gives you about half a pound to 1 pound of produce per square foot per season, if you're good. A vertical hydroponic system is 4 to 10 times more yield, using 95% less water and 1/5 the space. So, your grandmother's victory garden gave you maybe 200 pounds of produce every year. A modern victory farm, a vertical hydroponic system, can produce 800 to 2,000 pounds annually, depending on your crop mix. And I can tell you this firsthand. I came from soil gardening. I love soil gardening. But here on Maui, I rent. I can't tear up the ground. I don't own the soil under my feet. So instead of giving up, I went vertical. Today, my family of 6 is fed by 8 vertical tower gardens, 7 outside, and this absolute monster inside. And I could never, ever grow this much food in traditional garden bed. Not on this island, not in this rental, and not even with triple the space outside. So when I talk about Victory Gardens 2.0, I'm not talking about a theory, I'm talking about my life. In 1943, about 40% of households participated. So today, that would be roughly 52 million households. So let's run the numbers conservatively. Scenario A. If each modern household grew like a 1940s garden, that would be 200 pounds per year times 52 million homes. That would equal 10.4 billion pounds of food. That alone would shift the entire food system. But now let's look at scenario B. If each home uses a vertical hydroponic system and got 4 to 10 times the yield. So now we're talking about 800 to 2,000 pounds times 52 homes. That would be 41 to 104 billion pounds of produce every year. That's enough leafy greens, herbs, and fresh vegetables to supply the entire United States several times over. Before we talk about what modern victory gardens could be, we have to talk about where we are right now, because the truth is, our food system has changed more in the last 80 years than in the previous 8,000. Today, the average vegetable in the US grocery store has traveled 1,500 miles. It's been handled, washed, packed, boxed, shipped, stored, refrigerated, and shelved before you ever see it. Our food depends on a chain of diesel, plastic, labor, refrigeration, timing, good weather, cheap fuel, and a whole lot of luck. And as we've seen, a storm, a shipment delay, a drought, or a labor shortage, and the whole thing wobbles. We went from growing food in our backyards to relying on a global supply chain that can collapse faster than we think. And here's where things get interesting, because while small-scale vertical farming is growing fast, big industrial vertical farming really isn't doing so well. A lot of the big names in vertical farming expanded too fast. They built these massive facilities and they burned through all their investor money, and then they got crushed by rising energy costs and complicated logistics. See, they were trying to replace big agriculture overnight, and biology just really doesn't scale that way. But here's the twist. While giant vertical farms struggled, home vertical farms exploded. Families, schools, apartments, renters, people growing in kitchens, garages, balconies, backyards. And you know why? Because small-scale vertical farming actually works. It's affordable, it's practical, it's personal, it's resilient, and it's local. It doesn't depend on shareholders, it depends on real people.
Large-scale vertical farming tried to feed the world from the top down. Really, I think the best way to grow is from the ground up. So yes, big agricultural vertical farms are definitely struggling, but it's not because their idea was wrong, it was more about their scaling. This is why I think that the next agricultural revolution isn't going to be run by billion-dollar facilities. It's going to be millions and millions of homes, millions of people that start growing vertically in their backyards, on their balconies, at their churches. It's going to be people coming together and growing just like we did in 1943. This whole video and diving deep into Victory Gardens has really made me realize that Victory Gardens are a symbol for something so much bigger than just growing food. You know, it showed me what people can really do, what we can do as a nation when we come together for a greater purpose. I mean, what we can do to change the world. And honestly, every time I read your comments, every time you guys send me pictures of your first sprouts or your tower gardens, I'm reminded there are so many people that want a better way to grow, really a better way to live. So if you want to inspire your community, you don't need speeches, you don't need money. All you need is to start a garden. Because the best way to get your neighbor to start to grow is for them to see you grow. I'm Chad from Humble Growth Hydroponics. Let's grow food. Let's grow freedom. Let's grow together. See you in the next one.
You can have vegetables, lots of them, on your table next winter. You can have your own fresh vegetables on your table this summer if you have your own Victory Garden. Yes, there's no restriction on home canning and home processing of vegetables and garden fruits and berries. Plan your Victory Garden now. Get your garden plot lined up. Get the advice of a garden expert if you need it, and be prepared to grow your own for victory. Join a garden club or community garden movement, or share a garden with your neighbor. You can help win the battle of food production. You can help our fighting men get the food they need. You can help save the vital metals used in commercial canning if you grow your own Victory Garden in 1943. For further information, write to Victory Gardens, Washington, D.C. Victory Gardens, Washington, D.C.